I pulled into our driveway at 6:47 p.m., my work truck's engine ticking as it cooled. My hands were still grimy from running electrical lines through the crawl space all day. Through the front window, I could see Emily moving around the living room with unusual energy. "Jason!" Her voice hit me before I'd closed the door. She appeared in the hallway, practically bouncing, holding what looked like a small white stick. "You're not going to believe this!" I set my tool bag down slowly. Emily was normally controlled, measured, but tonight she looked like she might burst. "What's going on?" I asked, though something in my gut was already sending up warning flares. "Look!" Emily thrust the pregnancy test toward me. 2 pink lines stared back. "We're having a baby!" The words hit me like a punch. I stared at the test, then at Emily's expectant face, my mind immediately calculating like I approached any electrical problem. Identify the components, check the connections, find where the circuit breaks down. I paused, forcing my face into surprise and joy. "That's incredible, Em. When did you take this?" "Just an hour ago." I've been feeling off all week, tired, nauseous. I thought it was stress from the conference, but then I realized I was late. She gestured at the test. "Surprise." The conference. She'd been in Chicago for 5 days, just got back 3 days ago. Before that, we'd been like ships passing in the night, her working late, taking calls in private, seeming distracted. I pulled her into a hug, buying time to think. Over her shoulder, I did the math. If she just found out today with symptoms all week, that meant conception happened roughly. My blood ran cold. "How far along do you think you are?" I asked carefully. Emily pulled back, hands moving protectively to her stomach. "Based on my last period, maybe 5 weeks, 6 at the most." 5 to 6 weeks ago. I'd been dealing with my fertility consultation with Dr. Peterson just 4 weeks ago. He'd been gentle but clear. My sperm count was severely low, likely from a childhood infection. "Significantly reduced fertility," he'd said. "Low probability of natural conception." 5 weeks ago, Emily and I had been intimate only once, and I remembered it clearly because I'd been anxious about the upcoming appointment. After that, she'd seemed increasingly distant. 5 weeks ago, she'd been spending more time at the office, coming home with stories about her brilliant colleague, David Morrison, who was helping her prepare for Chicago. "This is amazing," I heard myself say. "I can't believe it. We're going to be parents." Emily beamed, launching into excited chatter about nursery colors and baby names. I nodded and made appropriate sounds, but my mind was elsewhere, running through recent memories like crime scene footage. The way she'd started putting her phone face down, the new perfume for work, insisting on driving herself to the airport instead of letting me drop her off, the hushed phone calls that ended when I walked into rooms. After dinner, a meal I barely tasted, we settled on the couch. Emily curled up against me, scrolling through pregnancy websites. "Look at this," she said, tilting the screen toward me. "At 5 weeks, the baby is about the size of a sesame seed. There's already a tiny heart forming." I stared at the tiny animated fetus that might or might not be mine and felt something fundamental shift inside me. This woman I'd loved for 9 years was either carrying another man's child and didn't know it, or was lying to my face about it. Neither option was acceptable. "I think I'll call in sick tomorrow," Emily murmured. "Start researching doctors, make appointments. I want everything perfect for our little one." Our little one. The possessive pronoun felt like mockery. She fell asleep against me around 10, breathing peacefully, one hand protectively curved over her stomach. I sat in the dark, listening to familiar house sounds. The refrigerator's hum, the neighbor's dog, distant traffic, normal sounds. The soundtrack of a normal life apparently built on lies. I thought about demanding the truth right then, but I'd learned enough about electrical work to know that when you suspect a dangerous short circuit, you don't just start pulling wires. You investigate methodically, You gather evidence. You understand the full scope before tearing anything apart. Because once you cut the wrong wire, there's no going back. I called in sick the next morning, something I'd done maybe 3 times in 5 years. Emily was still asleep when I left at 7 a.m., driving aimlessly while my mind worked through the problem like troubleshooting a complex electrical system. First step, gather data. I stopped at a coffee shop and opened my laptop. Our cell phone account was in my name, which meant I could access detailed usage records. I pulled up the last 3 months of Emily's call and text logs, downloading everything into a spreadsheet with the same precision I used for billing clients. The pattern emerged immediately. Starting 2 months ago, there had been a significant increase in calls to one particular number, not in our shared contacts. The calls were frequent and long, often during lunch breaks or after work. But what caught my attention were calls during her Chicago trip. Multiple conversations, some lasting over an hour, well into the night. I cross-referenced the number with a reverse lookup service. David Morrison, age 43, senior marketing director at Pinnacle Consulting, Emily's company, married, 2 children. My hands were steady as I took screenshots, but something cold was spreading through my chest. This wasn't speculation anymore. This was evidence. I drove home to find Emily humming in the kitchen, making tea instead of her usual coffee. She looked up with a radiant smile. "How are you feeling?" I asked, meaning it on multiple levels. "Better today. I think yesterday's nausea was nerves about telling you." She wrapped her arms around my waist. "I'm so happy, Jason. This feels right. Like it was meant to happen." Meant to happen. I wondered if David Morrison's wife would agree. "I made an appointment with Dr. Martinez," Emily continued, "and I went shopping after work yesterday for this." She held up a pregnancy guide, bristling with sticky notes. "Did you know that by 8 weeks, the baby will have tiny webbed fingers?" I listened to her chatter while cataloging the correction in my memory. She'd said she made the appointment and bought the book after work yesterday, which aligned with her getting home after me with the test already taken. After Emily left for work, I began the real investigation. Emily's laptop was password protected, but she'd never been security conscious. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, her mother's maiden name. On the 4th attempt, her sorority letters plus graduation year, I was in. Her email history told a story I wished I'd never learned to read. Messages between Emily and David Morrison went back 3 months, starting with professional collaboration and evolving into something else. I watched their relationship develop through electronic breadcrumbs, inside jokes, complaints about spouses, increasingly personal observations. The turning point had been 5 weeks ago before the Chicago conference. David had written, "I keep thinking about what you said about feeling invisible in your marriage. You deserve someone who sees you." Emily's response, "I can't stop thinking about you either. Chicago feels like a sign, doesn't it?" I screenshotted everything, creating a digital file that read like a roadmap to adultery. Hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations for 2. A damning email from David sent the morning she flew home. "Last night was everything I hoped. I can't wait to see you again." Emily's reply, "I know, but we have to be careful. Jason can't know. Not yet." Not yet. As if my ignorance was temporary, a problem to be managed. The final piece was most damning. An email thread from 2 days ago, after Emily confirmed her pregnancy. David's message, "Are you sure about the timing?" Emily's response, "It has to be yours." The timeline works. Jason and I haven't been together much lately, and that night in Chicago was right in the window. "This baby is ours, David." I sat back, staring until the words blurred. There it was. Confirmation that my wife was carrying another man's child and planning to pass it off as mine. My phone rang. Emily. "Hey, babe." Her voice was warm, intimate. "Just thinking about you. How are you feeling?" Better, I managed. Just tired. Don't overdo it. I want you healthy for all the excitement ahead. A pause. I love you, Jason. This baby. It's made me realize how much I want our future together. Our future. Built on a lie she was actively maintaining. I love you too, I said, because the habit was stronger than the rage building in my chest. After we hung up, I sat in our home office, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something fundamental shift. The confused, hurt Jason from yesterday was gone. In his place was someone harder, clearer, more focused. I opened a new browser window and began researching divorce attorneys specializing in adultery cases, then paternity testing procedures, then private investigators. Emily thought she was managing me, feeding me lies while she figured out her next move. She had no idea she'd just turned her husband into an adversary, and I was very good at solving problems other people thought were unsolvable. By the time Emily came home that evening, chattering about baby clothes and nursery themes, I had a plan. She thought she was controlling this situation, carefully managing information to her advantage. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. I told Emily I needed space on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after her announcement. We were sitting at the kitchen table, her pregnancy book open between us, when I delivered the news with the same calm precision I used to explain electrical problems to homeowners. I need time to process all this, I said, gesturing at the book. The baby? The changes coming? I think I should stay with Mike for a few days. Emily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Process what? Jason, we're having a baby. What's there to process? Everything, I said simply. This changes our whole life, Em. I want to make sure I'm in the right headspace to be the father this child deserves. It was a masterful lie, wrapped in enough truth to be believable. Emily's expression softened immediately. Of course, she said, reaching across to cover my hand. I should have realized this might be overwhelming for you too. Take whatever time you need, but don't disappear on me completely, okay? We're in this together. Together. The word tasted like ash. I packed a bag that afternoon while Emily was at work, taking only essentials and leaving obvious traces of my presence. Toiletries, dirty clothes, evidence that I planned to return soon. Mike lived 40 minutes away in a converted garage apartment behind his ex-wife's house. He asked no questions when I showed up with my duffel bag. Stay as long as you need, he said, cracking open a beer. Sarah's been saying the place feels too empty anyway. That first night, Emily called twice. I let both go to voicemail. Hey, just checking in, her first message said. Call me when you're ready. The second, 3 hours later, carried uncertainty. Jason? I'm starting to worry. You've never just not answered before. Please call me back. I deleted both messages without responding. By Friday afternoon, Emily's texts had shifted from understanding to confused. I get that you need time, but this feels different. Can you at least tell me you're safe? I turned off my phone for the weekend. Over the weekend, I used Mike's computer to execute my plan. First, I contacted Patterson and Associates, a law firm specializing in family law with a particularly aggressive reputation. Margaret Patterson agreed to see me Monday morning. Next, I reached out to a private investigation firm advertising expertise in paternity and infidelity cases. The consultation fee was steep, but I had savings Emily didn't know about. Money from side jobs I'd been setting aside for home improvements. Instead, it was going toward destroying my marriage. Sunday evening, Mike found me on his couch, legal pad covered with notes and timelines. You want to talk about what's really going on? He asked. Because this doesn't look like a guy processing fatherhood. I told him everything. The timeline that didn't add up, the emails, the phone records, David Morrison's name and position, Dr. Peterson's fertility diagnosis that made natural conception unlikely. Mike listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. Jesus Christ, Jason, he said when I finished. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone involved faces the full consequences of their choices, I said. Emily, David, everyone who enabled this. They thought they could compartmentalize this, keep it separate from their real lives. I'm going to show them that actions ripple outward. Monday morning, I met with Margaret Patterson in her downtown office. She was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened to my story with focus. The timeline evidence is compelling, she said after reviewing my documentation. Combined with Dr. Peterson's medical records and digital evidence, we have a strong case. But I have to ask, are you certain you want this level of thoroughness? What you're describing isn't just divorce proceedings, it's total warfare. They started the war, I said. I'm just finishing it. She smiled, and I understood why her firm had such a fearsome reputation. That afternoon, I met with Dr. Elizabeth, the paternity consultant. Her office was clinical, designed to deliver uncomfortable truths with scientific precision. Based on the information you've provided, Dr. Elizabeth said, reviewing Dr. Peterson's fertility results and Emily's timeline, the probability of you being the biological father is less than 5%. While we can't provide definitive confirmation without DNA testing, the evidence strongly suggests alternative paternity. Less than 5%. I thought about Emily's radiant face showing me that pregnancy test, her excited planning for our future. Had she known? Had she been hoping the timing was ambiguous enough to make it work? It didn't matter anymore. By Monday evening, my phone showed 37 missed calls from Emily and 14 voicemails I hadn't bothered to check. I turned it on briefly to see her text messages, increasingly frantic, moving through confusion to anger to genuine panic, then powered it off completely and began preparing for Phase 2. Tuesday morning, I woke up feeling clearer than I had in weeks. Emily thought she was in control, managing information and manipulating timelines. She had no idea that her husband had just spent 3 days assembling the weapons that would end not just our marriage, but her entire carefully constructed lie. She wanted to play games with truth and loyalty? Fine. But she was about to learn that some games have consequences extending far beyond the players who started them. Wednesday morning, I put my plan into motion with the precision of a master electrician wiring a complex system. Every connection had to be perfect, every circuit tested, every outcome calculated. Because once I threw the switch, there would be no undoing what followed. First stop, Patterson and Associates, where Margaret Patterson had prepared 3 separate document packages. The divorce papers were comprehensive: adultery grounds, detailed timeline evidence, financial records, and a request for Emily to vacate our home within 30 days. The package for David Morrison's wife, Linda, contained printed copies of every email exchange, phone records highlighting their frequent contact, and hotel receipts from Chicago. The HR complaint for Pinnacle Consulting included evidence of their senior marketing director's inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, complete with documented policy violations. The timing of service is crucial, Margaret explained. Simultaneous delivery ensures no one has time to coordinate damage control. I nodded, checking my watch. 10:47 a.m. Phase 1. Emily's workplace humiliation. I'd arranged for divorce papers to be served at Pinnacle Consulting at exactly 11 a.m. when Emily would be in her weekly team meeting. The process server specialized in workplace deliveries. He knew how to create maximum impact while staying within legal boundaries. Phase 2. Linda Morrison's devastating morning. A courier was scheduled to deliver the evidence package to David's home at 11:15 a.m., when David would be at work, but Linda would likely be home. The package included a cover letter I'd written myself, explaining exactly who I was and why she needed to see what her husband had been doing. Phase 3. Corporate consequences. The HR complaint would be hand-delivered to Pinnacle's head office at 11:30 a.m., with copies sent via certified mail and email to create an unimpeachable paper trail. I drove to a parking lot 6 blocks from Pinnacle Consulting and waited. At 11 a.m. exactly, my phone buzzed with a text from the process server. Package delivered. Target appeared shocked. Several witnesses present. I could picture it. Emily sitting in the conference room, probably discussing quarterly targets, when a stranger walked in asking for Emily Hartwell. The confusion as she identified herself. The formal language. You are being served with divorce papers. The stunned silence as colleagues processed what they were witnessing. The humiliation spreading across her face as she realized her private life was now very public. At 11:17 a.m., my phone rang. Emily's number. I declined the call and turned the phone off completely. By noon, I was parked outside a diner 20 minutes from David Morrison's neighborhood, eating a burger and checking my watch. The courier had confirmed delivery to Linda Morrison at 11:23 a.m. The HR complaint had been successfully filed with Pinnacle's corporate office. Now came the hardest part, waiting for the dominoes to fall. I drove back to Mike's place and settled in to monitor the aftermath. I'd set up Google alerts for David Morrison's name, tracking any news about Pinnacle Consulting, and created a temporary email account for communications with Margaret Patterson. The first sign of impact came at 2:47 p.m., an email from Patterson's office indicating that Emily's attorney had already made contact. Emily was moving fast, which meant she understood the gravity of her situation. At 3:15 p.m., Mike called from his job. "Dude, you need to check Channel 7's website. There's something about Pinnacle Consulting." I pulled up the local news site and found a brief item in the business section. Senior Marketing Director at Pinnacle Consulting suspended pending. Investigation into workplace conduct allegations. No names mentioned, but the timing was too coincidental. David Morrison was already facing professional consequences. Good. My temporary email account started filling up. Emily's attorney requesting communication. A law firm I didn't recognize, probably David Morrison's counsel, making vague inquiries about resolving this matter discreetly. Updates from Patterson's office on Emily's initial responses. But the most interesting email came at 4:33 p.m. from Linda Morrison herself. "Mr. Hartwell," it began, "I received your package today. I want you to know that I've already contacted my attorney and filed for immediate separation. My children and I have moved to my sister's house. David came home to an empty house and divorce papers. I thought you should know that your evidence is being used to ensure he faces full consequences. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth." I read the message twice, feeling a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness. Linda Morrison was innocent in all this, just like I had been. But unlike me, she now had the information she needed to protect herself. At 6:20 p.m., I finally turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, 22 voicemails. I scrolled through Emily's texts, watching her emotional journey play out in real time. 11:03 a.m. What the hell is happening? Call me now. 11:47 a.m. Jason, please, people are staring. I don't understand. Please call me. 1:23 p.m. I can't reach you anywhere. Mike won't tell me where you are. Whatever you think you know, we can talk. 2:15 p.m. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Please just call me so we can fix this. 3:44. They suspended me pending investigation. Everyone knows. How could you humiliate me like this? 4:58 p.m. David's wife called me, screaming. She knows everything. His kids won't talk to him. You've destroyed so many lives. 5:32 p.m. I know you're reading these. We can work through this. The baby needs both parents. The baby. Even caught red-handed, she was still trying to manipulate me with a child that wasn't mine. I listened to one voicemail from the middle of the day. Jason, it's me. I don't know what to say. I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. David and I, yes, we got close, but the baby is yours. I swear to God, the baby is yours. We can do a test, whatever you need. Please don't throw away 9 years over this. I deleted the message without emotion. Emily was still lying, still trying to control the narrative even as her world collapsed. By 8 p.m., Margaret Patterson called with an update. Your wife's attorney is pushing for an emergency meeting, she said. They want to discuss settlement terms immediately, which suggests they know their position is untenable. David Morrison has already been terminated from Pinnacle. Apparently, the company has zero tolerance for executives engaging in relationships with subordinates. His wife filed for divorce this afternoon. And Emily? Still suspended, but termination seems inevitable once the investigation concludes. I hung up and sat in Mike's quiet apartment, processing the completeness of my victory. In less than 8 hours, I dismantled not just Emily's marriage, but her career, her social standing, and her carefully constructed life. David Morrison had lost his job, his family, and his reputation. Linda Morrison and their children were free from his lies. Justice had been served. My phone rang again. Emily's number. For the first time in days, I answered. Jason? Her voice was barely a whisper, raw from crying. Oh, God. Thank you for answering. Please, we need to talk. There's nothing to explain, I said calmly. I read your emails, Emily. All of them. I know about Chicago, about David, about your plans to pass his child off as mine. Silence. Then, the baby is yours. Jason, please, you have to believe me. Emily, I interrupted, still calm, still controlled. I have Dr. Peterson's medical records showing my sperm count is too low for natural conception. I have phone records showing you were in constant contact with David for months. I have hotel receipts from Chicago. I have emails where you explicitly told David the baby was his. Stop lying to me. A sob broke through the phone, ragged and desperate. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. It started as just... We were working together and you and I were having problems, and I felt so alone. We weren't having problems, I said. You created problems because you wanted to justify what you were already planning to do. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, Jason. I made a terrible mistake, but we can fix this. One mistake? I almost laughed. Emily, you had an affair, got pregnant with another man's child, came home and lied to my face about it, and planned to let me raise that child believing it was mine. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of deliberate deception. But the baby is not my responsibility, I finished. Goodbye, Emily. I hung up and powered off the phone again. Outside Mike's window, the sun was setting. Somewhere across town, Emily was probably sitting in our house, my house now, surrounded by baby books and pregnancy guides, finally understanding that her careful manipulation had failed completely. And somewhere, Linda Morrison was tucking her children into bed in their aunt's guest room, beginning the hard work of rebuilding their lives on truth instead of lies. I felt no guilt, no regret, no second thoughts. Emily and David had gambled that they could compartmentalize their betrayal. They'd lost that bet spectacularly. The next morning, I woke up to find that my strategic strike had created a domino effect more comprehensive than I'd even planned. Margaret Patterson called at 8 a.m. with updates confirming the scope of devastation. Emily's been terminated, she said without preamble. Pinnacle completed their investigation overnight. They can't afford to keep her after the Morrison scandal. They're cutting all ties with anyone connected to the situation. I poured myself coffee and settled into Mike's kitchen chair, feeling oddly calm. What about David? Professional suicide. Not only terminated, but Linda Morrison's attorney is going after him for half of everything. House, retirement accounts, stock options, plus child support for 2 teenagers who refused to speak to him. Through Mike's kitchen window, I could see normal suburban life proceeding. Kids waiting for school buses, neighbors walking dogs, people heading to work. Their lives continued in orderly patterns, while mine underwent fundamental reconstruction. "Emily's attorney wants to meet today," Margaret continued. "They're desperate to contain this, which means they're willing to negotiate from weakness." "What kind of negotiations?" "They want to know what it would take for you to agree to paternity testing after the baby's born instead of pushing for immediate DNA confirmation. They're hoping to buy time." I almost laughed. Even facing complete ruin, Emily was still trying to control the timeline, still hoping she could find some angle that would work in her favor. "Tell them I'm not interested in negotiations. The evidence speaks for itself." After hanging up, I drove to a coffee shop and opened my laptop. Emily's social media had gone dark, all accounts either deactivated or locked down, but David Morrison's professional LinkedIn page was still active, and the comments section had become a battlefield of professional gossip. The local news had picked up the story. "Local marketing firm rocked by executive misconduct scandal," read the business section headline. The article was vague on details but mentioned inappropriate relationships and ethics violations that had resulted in significant personnel changes. But the real entertainment was in local Facebook groups, where Pinnacle employees were clearly sharing gossip despite company policies. Emily's name appeared in several posts, along with David's, as people who knew someone who worked there shared increasingly detailed accounts of the workplace drama. I closed the laptop and drove home for the first time in a week. The house felt different, smaller somehow, less like a sanctuary and more like a crime scene. Emily's pregnancy books were scattered across the coffee table, sticky notes marking chapters about preparing your partner for fatherhood. Her prenatal vitamins sat on the kitchen counter next to an appointment card for Dr. Martinez. I gathered everything baby-related and put it in a box, which I left by the front door. Then I went through the house methodically, removing any trace of Emily's future plans. The nursery furniture catalogs, the list of baby names taped to the refrigerator, the pregnancy app bookmarked on our shared iPad. All of it went into the box. My phone showed 32 new messages from Emily. I scrolled through them, watching her emotional disintegration. "I lost my job. They said I violated company policy. 23 people saw you serve me divorce papers. David won't return my calls. His wife changed the locks and filed a restraining order. I'm pregnant and alone and I have no income. How am I supposed to take care of this baby? My parents are asking questions I can't answer. My sister won't talk to me. Everyone in town knows. I know you think this baby isn't yours, but Jason, please, even if you're right, this child didn't choose any of this." The last message had arrived an hour ago. "I'm staying at the Motel 6 on Route 9. I can't afford anything else. Please, if you ever loved me, just talk to me." I deleted all the messages without responding and called Margaret Patterson. "I want to accelerate the timeline," I told her. "How quickly can we finalize this divorce?" With her attorney pushing for settlement and the evidence we have, we could have preliminary agreements within 2 weeks, though final divorce proceedings will take several months. But Jason, are you certain you want to proceed this aggressively? She's pregnant, unemployed, and essentially homeless. She made her choices, I said. I'm not responsible for the consequences. That afternoon, Mike came home to find me replacing the locks on my front door. Seems a little excessive, he said, watching me work. She's not exactly in a position to cause more trouble. It's not about trouble, I said, testing the new deadbolt. It's about making sure she understands that this house, this life, is no longer hers. That evening, I received a call from Linda Morrison. Jason, I hope you don't mind me calling. I wanted to thank you again for having the courage to expose this. My attorney says the evidence you provided will ensure David can't hide assets. I'm glad it's helping. There's something else, she continued. David tried to contact me through my sister yesterday. He wants to reconcile, says Emily seduced him and that he's the real victim. I thought you should know he's trying to rewrite history. I almost smiled. Of course, David was attempting damage control, trying to paint himself as the innocent party led astray by a manipulative subordinate. How did you respond? I told my sister to inform him that if he contacts me again, I'll add harassment to the divorce filing. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. After we hung up, I sat in my newly secured house, appreciating the symbolism. Linda Morrison had discovered the truth and immediately taken action to protect herself and her children. Meanwhile, Emily was sitting in a motel room, probably still believing she could find some combination of words that would undo the consequences of her choices. My phone buzzed with another text from Emily. I saw Linda Morrison at the grocery store today. She saw me and walked away. Her daughter was with her. She looked at me like I was something disgusting. Is this what you wanted? I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. What I wanted was for Emily to understand that betrayal creates ripples that touch everyone in its path. These weren't punishments I'd invented. They were natural consequences of choices Emily and David had made freely, believing they could compartmentalize their actions without affecting anyone else. I'd simply ensured that the truth came to light quickly and completely, rather than allowing the deception to continue indefinitely. Tomorrow, Margaret Patterson would continue processing the divorce paperwork. Emily would have to find a way to survive as a single mother with no career prospects. David would have to rebuild his life from scratch, and I would continue the work of constructing a new life based on truth rather than comfortable lies. 1 year later, I was installing custom lighting in a restored Victorian house in Portland, Oregon, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it automatically. Emily had tried reaching me through various channels, and I'd blocked each attempt systematically. But something made me open this one. It was a photo. A baby, maybe 4 months old, with dark hair and features that unmistakably belonged to David Morrison. Below the image, a brief message. Her name is Sophie. I thought you should know she looks exactly like her father. I studied the photo for a moment, feeling nothing more than mild curiosity. Sophie was undeniably David's daughter. The resemblance was so strong it would have been obvious even without DNA confirmation. Emily had finally stopped pretending. I deleted the message and went back to work. My new life had taken shape with surprising speed. Hartwell Electric Solutions was booming. Word of mouth in Portland's restoration community had generated more high-end residential work than I could handle alone. I'd hired 2 apprentices and was considering expanding into commercial projects. The house I'd bought was a 1920s Craftsman that I was slowly renovating in my spare time. It sat on 2 acres outside the city, with a workshop where I could build custom fixtures and a garden I was learning to tend with methodical precision. I'd started dating again 6 months ago. Nothing serious yet, but I approached relationships differently now. Trust was something to be earned gradually, verified consistently, and never assumed automatically. Margaret Patterson had sent periodic updates on the legal aftermath. The divorce had been finalized after several months, with Emily receiving minimal assets. David Morrison's divorce had been equally brutal. Linda had successfully claimed half of everything, plus substantial child support. Last I'd heard, he was working as a freelance consultant, his corporate career effectively over. Emily had moved back to her hometown in Ohio, where her parents helped her raise Sophie while she worked part-time retail jobs. The marketing career she'd spent years building was essentially finished. I felt no satisfaction in her struggles, but no sympathy either. She'd made choices that created these consequences. My role had simply been to ensure that truth came to light quickly, rather than allowing deception to continue indefinitely. My phone rang. Mike, calling from back home. Hey, stranger. How's the Pacific Northwest treating you? Can't complain. Just finished wiring a house that's going to be featured in some architectural magazine. The workout here is incredible. Good for you, man. Listen, I thought you should know. I ran into Emily's sister at the hardware store yesterday. She said Emily's been asking about you, wondering how you're doing. I paused in my work. And I told her you'd moved on completely. New state, new business, new life. That you seemed happier than I'd seen you in years. A pause. That was the right thing to say, wasn't it? Yeah, I said, and realized I meant it. That was exactly right. After we hung up, I finished installing the chandelier I'd been working on, a custom piece I'd designed specifically for this dining room. As I tested the connections and watched light cast warm patterns across restored hardwood floors, I reflected on how much my life had changed. A year ago, I'd been living in a house built on lies, married to a woman who'd been systematically deceiving me while planning to raise another man's child as mine. Now I lived alone in a house I was rebuilding with my own hands, surrounded by work that challenged and satisfied me, accountable to no one but myself. The betrayal that had once felt like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of a life that was authentically mine. Emily's deception had forced me to discover strengths I'd never known I possessed, the ability to investigate thoroughly, plan strategically, and act decisively when necessary. I'd learned that I didn't need to tolerate lies or manipulation, that I had more power than I'd realized, and that sometimes the best response to betrayal was simply to walk away and build something better. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time I didn't even look at the message before deleting it. Emily belonged to my past now, along with the man I'd been when I trusted her. Both versions of reality had served their purpose and then ended, making room for whatever came next. I packed up my tools and headed home to my craftsman house, where I'd spend the evening working on the kitchen renovation and planning the next day's electrical challenges. Simple tasks, honest work, a life built on facts rather than comfortable fictions. It wasn't the future I'd once imagined, but it was entirely my own. And that, I'd discovered, was worth more than any relationship built on lies could ever be. The truth had set me free in ways I'd never expected. Now I was building something new with that freedom, one careful connection at a time. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.